Hey everybody, CJ here, and I'm super excited today because this is my first phone review. And so today I'm going to be reviewing Apple's iPhone 6. I know my review is really late, but better late than never, so let's get into it. So let's start out by taking a look around the outside of the phone. On the right side of the phone you'll find the sleep-wake button, which has been moved to this side. It used to be on the top. And you'll also find the SIM card tray. And one thing to note here, this is a pretty good view of the protruding camera lens on the new iPhone 6. Personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but everybody has their own opinions. On the left side of the phone, you'll find your mute switch and the redesigned volume buttons. On the iPhone 5S, the volume buttons were circular and had the plus and minus symbols on them. But now on the iPhone 6, they have a more flat design, just like the sleep-wake button. There is now nothing on the top of the phone because the sleep-wake button has been moved, and on the bottom of the phone, you'll find your speakers, your lightning connector for charging and syncing, a microphone for making calls, and your 3.5mm headphone jack. On the front, you'll obviously find the screen, which I'll talk more about later, and you'll find the earpiece, the FaceTime camera, Touch ID, and the ambient light sensor for adjusting your screen brightness. The back of the phone obviously has the camera, a mic, the dual-tone flash, a polished Apple logo, iPhone branding, and the two bars at the top and bottom for the antenna. This phone feels very good in the hand. It has a very premium feel, and it feels great when you slide your finger across the display because the glass actually curves down to meet the aluminum body, so it feels very smooth. The only problem is that it is a little bit slippery, so I wouldn't trust myself with it without a case. The iPhone 6 has the A8 chip, so it performs very well, and I have never seen it stutter. So now, let's talk about the display. The diagonal measurement of this display is 4.7 inches, and the resolution is 1334 by 750, giving it a score of 326 pixels per inch. Now, the iPhone 6 definitely doesn't have as many pixels as the Samsung Galaxy S6 or the LG G4, but it still is a really good display. It is an IPS display, so the colors are great, and it still looks great when you view it off-axis. Also, it gets pretty bright, so you'll be able to see it outdoors. So overall, I really like the display. Even though it doesn't have as many pixels as new phones. So, moving on to Touch ID, all I can say is that it works very well. It reads my finger, like, perfectly almost every time. The only time it doesn't read it is when I seat my thumb, like, sideways on the home button, but that's my fault. So if you seat it correctly, or even somewhat correctly, it'll read it and unlock your phone. So, it's very good. So the speakers on the iPhone 6 are on the bottom, so if you're watching a video or a movie, they'll be side-facing speakers. So I'm gonna let you take a listen, but please keep in mind it may not sound as good as it will in person because my camera might not get that great of the sound quality. Hey everybody, CJ here with a quick little video, telling you a little piece of news that I think you'll be very excited to hear. Samsung announced that they're going to be making an Iron Man Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge. So overall, the speakers were pretty good. They're not as good as the speakers on the HTC One M8 or M9, but they get pretty loud and it gets the job done. So, moving on to camera, the iPhone 6 has an 8-megapixel camera with a sapphire crystal lens cover, so even though it sticks out, it won't get scratched. And it also has burst mode,
And for video, it can record 1080p at 30 or 60 frames a second, and slow-mo at 120 or 240 frames per second. It also has continuous autofocus, but sadly it won't record 4K because it doesn't have enough megapixels. Here are some pictures that I took with the iPhone 6 in good lighting, and as you can see, they turn out really good. They're very sharp, and for the most part, it adjusts the exposure pretty well, but if you need to, you can always use the slider in iOS 8 to adjust it yourself. Pictures taken in low light obviously get very grainy, but the flash sharpens them right back up when you are close enough to what you're taking a picture of. Please note, though, that the flash won't be able to light everything up, especially if you're far away from what you're trying to take a picture of, so those photos will still be grainy. So here's a sample of video from the iPhone 6, and as you can tell, it's very good in good lighting. The autofocus is very quick, and it adjusts the exposure well. The only problem is that it doesn't have optical image stabilization. That only comes on the iPhone 6 Plus, so that's a downside. And here's a sample of slow motion video from the iPhone 6. It is also very good. It's buttery smooth with that high frame rate of 240 frames per second, and it's really awesome. Moving on to the front-facing camera, it has a 1.2 megapixel FaceTime HD camera that records 720p HD video, and in good lighting, it's a very good camera, good for taking selfies. But when the sun goes down and you're trying to get a low light shot, the picture gets very grainy very quickly, and there's no flash to help it recover this time. So overall, I'm very impressed with the cameras. They take spectacular pictures in good lighting. Video is great. Slow motion video is amazing. The only problem is when you try to get a shot in low light, the cameras get really grainy, and especially if you're not close enough to what you're taking a picture of for the flash to help you, pictures in low light won't look good. So now on to battery life, which I say is mediocre. With light usage, you can get around 6 or 7 hours with that amazing standby time that iPhones have. But if you're doing some heavier work, you can expect that time to drop by probably a couple hours of screen on time. So now you may be thinking to yourself, well, he's gone over everything about this phone except the operating system. Or you might be thinking, are there any other shortcuts or anything built into the OS that'll help with the bigger screen? Well, the answer is yes, but there's just one. It's called reachability, and basically you double tap. You don't double press, because that brings you to multitasking, but you double tap the home button, and it brings everything from the top of the screen down to the middle. So this is supposed to help you by bringing everything down. You can reach what's at the top while still using one hand, but I don't find it all that helpful, and I don't use it like ever, because all it does is bring it down to the bottom half of the screen. Then you tap on something and it goes directly back to where it was. So I don't find it all that helpful. iOS doesn't have any other multitasking capabilities or split screen capabilities for the iPhone 6. It doesn't even get the split screen options that the iPhone 6 Plus gets.
In the end, I really do like this phone. I really like the build quality, although I do recommend that you get a case so that you don't break it because it's so slippery. I like the display. Touch ID is amazing. The cameras perform very well in good lighting. iOS is good. It's iOS and it's simple, but that's what I like about iOS. I wish there were more features like reachability. Reachability is there, but I don't really see myself using it a whole lot because it just brings everything down to the bottom half of the display, and then you click on something and it goes right back to where it was. So I wish there were more features like that that would actually be helpful and useful. The cons of this phone are that the cameras both look grainy in low light. The flash helps the rear-facing camera in low light, but it doesn't help it all the time, so photos still can look grainy in low light. And the front-facing camera is really grainy because there's no flash to make up for it. Also, I think the battery could have been a little bit better. It's a pretty good battery, but I think it could have been better. And the last thing is that it runs iOS, which really isn't a con. It just depends on what you like better. So if you like Android, you probably won't want this phone. But if you like iOS, then this phone will be great for you. So anyways, that wraps up my iPhone 6 review. If you liked it, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more phone reviews and tech content from me. And anyways, that's about it. Thanks for watching. I really like the display. It's pretty sharp. You can see pickles.